Hey guys, and welcome to another video. This time it is going to be lore, something I've not done before, but lore is actually pretty interesting and Warcraft does have good lore. As much as they may work it up in-game, the thought behind it's actually pretty good. So this time we're going to talk about Lei Shen. After all, we just killed him in this patch, and I think it'll be a pretty interesting topic because a lot of people just saw him as sort of popping up out of nowhere, which I suppose he in a bit of a way did, but he does have quite a backstory. Now, the story of him actually starts with the story of the Titans and the Mogu. The Mogu were constructed by the Titans in a similar way to what the Earthen were, and are one of the original seed races of Azeroth. So the purpose of the Mogu was to shape the land and stuff like that. Essentially, they shaped Pandaria, in terms of the actual landmass. Now, after the Titans left, the old gods afflicted them with the Curse of Flesh. This turned them from stone to flesh, and sort of gave them a whole bunch of the associated problems. Now, their Titan Watcher, Raden, who is the heroic only boss on the Throne of Thunder, seemed to fall dormant at this point. He no longer was involved with them pretty much, and they fell to mortal problems like greed, anger, and the lust for power. This basically made them turn into a bunch of different factions who were all vying for power. Loads of warlords, war, basically they had fallen stagnant because of constant war, and this is where Lei Shen comes in. So he was born in a time known as the Age of 100 Kings, and really until he confronted Raden, nothing set him apart other than his ambition. So he went to where Raden was, which was the Thundering Mountain, and Raden was in there watching over a Titan device called the Engine of Nalak Shah. Interestingly enough, Nalak, you know, the storm god guy, and Shah being one of the problems we had. Interesting naming, it could just be a coincidence though. Now, what exactly happened here we are not sure, but Lei Shen took dominion over them both and gained the power over storm and wind. Now, we can speculate that he actually defeated Raden in combat, because if you look at Raden's model, he's pretty damaged, he's scuffed up. Now, by claiming this victory, he pretty much solidified his position. His followers tried to call him the Lightning King, but he said lightning strikes in an instant and is over the flesh. But thunder proclaims the coming of the storm. Thunder quakes the skies long before the lightning strikes, and the thunder echoes in the hills after lightning's power is spent. It is thunder that sends animals cowering and fills the hearts of peasants with dread. Let thunder be my herald, so the power is felt throughout the land. I will be the Thunder King. So with that, he solidified his position amongst his followers as being the Thunder King. He built a forbidden city on top of the Thundering Mountain, which served as his seat of power, and he pretty much solidified his position amongst his rivals, started taking over more of the Mogu clans by killing them all. And after this, he proceeded to start enslaving other races, as they were seen as being lesser and therefore should serve the Mogu. Now, under his rule, he built the Mogushan Vaults. These were made to keep the secrets and artifacts of the Empire. He even unified their language, currency, and gave standardized weight and measurements, so I suppose that's pretty good. His laws, though, were maybe not so nice. He made a whole bunch of laws, the first of which being that anyone who is trying to incite rebellion shall be subject to public evisceration, which is quite the deterrent. So he focused on bringing the entire Pandaria under his control. Now, there is two sort of stumbling blocks. The first off was the Pandaren population of Kunlai Summit, and the other was the Mantid. So he needed more slaves, and getting the Kunlai people to just, bow down, go without a fight, and just sort of be easy was troublesome, and he said that if a single warrior could best him in one-on-one combat, that he would leave in peace, but if they were defeated, then the entire land would be his. Zhuan, the White Tiger, who is one of the celestial gods, decided he would take up the challenge. Unfortunately for Zhuan, Lei Shen was able to defeat him, and Zhuan was imprisoned on the top of the Kunlai Summit Mountains, forced to watch his people being subjected to slavery. Now, there was then the other problem, and this was the Mantid. So the Mantid, in terms of their allegiance, they are allied to the old gods, in particular Yasharaj. Now, the Mogu were a Titan construct, so naturally enough, the Mantid wouldn't really be too friendly to them. So in order to deal with the Mantid problem, what he did was he built a giant wall. This is known as the Serpent Spine, and to those in the real world, it's pretty much the Great Wall of China, and it's a massive wall that spans the continent. He said that fear moved mountains, raised armies, and it's what built his wall. Now, Lei Shen was successful in conquering all of Pandaria bar the Mantid, but the wall seemed to take care of that problem. The combination of the wall and the defenders on it was able to do the job. Now, eventually, he did die of old age, because all these thunder powers, they didn't make him immortal. Now, Pandaren legend does say that he was defeated in open combat by a group of brave Pandaren monks during the revolution. However, since there were emperors after Lei Shen, before the Pandaren revolution, this is almost definitely false. Now, the Pandaren eventually did rise up and overthrow the Mogu. This was even, despite the Mogu's aid of the Zandalari trolls, they were basically able to defeat them all, leaving the Mogu scattered. Now, this war was originally quite hard for the Pandaren, however, they were able to really deal with a lot of the Zandalari problem with the founding of the Order of the Cloud Serpent. Using the Cloud Serpents as sort of mounts of war, they were able to overcome the forces and turn the tide of the war. Now that's really where things sort of stopped. That's where the Pandaren Empire took up power, and for the next, I think, 2,000 years, everything was good until the events of the Shattering. And the best place to find out that lore, well, in relation to the Pandaren, is by watching the Burdens of Shaohao miniseries that Blizzard did. Now let's skip ahead 12,000 years later to the present day. The Zandalari trolls and the Mogu have allied again, and they were planning to resurrect Lei Shen. Eventually they did find his body buried in the Tomb of Conquerors, and his body was taken to the Isle of Reckoning, and this is where they were able to actually resurrect him. Now this happened at the start of the expansion. Since then he went to the Isle of Thunder, and he sort of got his fortifications and that sort of thing together and raised his army. Now in patch 5.2 the Isle of Thunder was open to players, and after defeating his army and minions he was eventually bested in combat. To seal the deal, Rathian actually ate his heart. Black dragons definitely have weird tastes, and this led him very much dead, and without their fabled leader, they fell back into a state of disarray. The closest they had really came before that was when Xin the Weapon Master, who he killed in one of the heroic dungeons, tried to ally the tribes, and he was defeated by players before his plans came to fruition. And really that's the Mogu threat dealt with for a very long time. Lei Shen is most definitely dead, and he's permanently dead, and really, without his thunder powers, there's not going to be that much that's going to reunify the people, especially with the utter dominance of the Pandaren Empire. And that's really the end of this episode. However, there is one little thing I'd like to point out. The continent's called Pandaria, right? Well, why would the Mogu call it Pandaria? Like the land their continent is named after their slaves. They must have had another name for it. It's unfortunate that we never really found that out, but I suppose it'd be nice to know. Anyway, that's it for this first episode of me doing lore. Of course, this is going to be much rougher than most of the episodes because I'll be constantly refining it, trying to get good background stuff, good background music, that kind of thing, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's nice content that's easy. It's probably more interesting to listen to than me talking about class changes or something, so I think it's worth doing. But anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you like this series, please, leave it in the comments, leave me your feedback, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and with that, I'll see you next time.